Welcome everyone. It's Black Metal Legends 10 today, and we have the main man behind Whoredom Rife, V.Einride, and he is a multi-talented musician because I'm sure as you've seen some of the notes for the Whoredom Rife albums, not only does he do drums, but he writes all the guitars and bass and records it himself. And I think that's fascinating, and we've got him here today to share more about his time in the black metal scene, talk about drumming, his bands, and everything really. So welcome to Black Metal Legends. Really excited to have you on board.
Thank you. I'm honored.
I think one thing to start off with would be talking about the new Hord Rife album. Because
Mhm.
we had because I remember you mentioning in Trondheim and you were talking about how the production, how you kind of wanted everything a bit more away, more in the sense of like seeing the bigger picture. And after listening to it and giving it a few listens, it totally makes sense now because there's so much more like sound wise, it's just easier to kind of get soaked into the music. So how did you go about creating the sound and making the listener find that atmosphere in the bigger picture? How was that done? And just talk a bit more about the general writing process that you use for Hord Rife.
I remember us having that conversation, by the way, because I had kind of like an epiphany. I'm not a sound guy. I don't have the terminology down. I don't really speak their language. And um, as you all may know, there's this guy, Rune Stavnesli, I've been working with him since like the early 2000s. And he's done all the mixing and mastering for all the Hord Rife releases. There's always this ongoing discussion whenever we're going to release something. He's living in Ålesund, which is in a different area of Norway, and I'm living in Trondheim, and then we always like communicate by telephone. And it's kind of hard to make somebody understand what you're hearing inside your head, and you have to describe it with words that you barely know. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of try and error. This is the fourth full length, isn't it? Yeah. And I think we have some progression throughout our releases. But this time, I felt like when I was listening to the first mixes, I felt on one side that it was too close to the other stuff we've done. And on the other hand, I kind of felt like it was claustrophobic because everything was like right here. I could hear everything, but it all blended in such a way that everything was like full force all the time. And I was listening in my Sony headset. It's a pretty good one. Um, and I didn't really know how to put my finger on it, and I didn't really know how to explain it. But then suddenly, um, I got this notion that it felt too close. Even like the drums, the guitars, the bass, the vocals, everything was right here. So I called Rune and I told him, I think this is the problem. We need some space here. We need to push all the instruments and the vocals back a little bit in order to hear what's going on around it. And he was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And he like told me, give me a few hours and I'll see what I can do. And he did. And suddenly there was like, wow, this is exactly what I've been missing. This is exactly what we need to do. And we started all over again, actually, because we were in line for the pressing of the album already. So the masters was sent, but I pulled them from the press and told them, "Hey, we need some more time. Can we please keep our line in the queue?" And they said, "Sure, as long as you don't use too much time." So, but I felt we already had a better result than what we came up with the first time. So we used a couple of weeks, I think, and we used that as a base mix, and then we built a little on top of it, and it really came out a lot more atmospheric, and I feel like it's more dynamic. I feel like the music and the instruments are breathing a lot more. And a really cool lesson that I learned. I wish I discovered it earlier, because now when I listen to the old albums, I wish I did the same thing. But then again, I'm not going to touch the stuff that's already released. But yeah, I know what to do for the next album, at least.
And that's, I think, one of the big defining characteristics between a lot of black metal and death metal is that some, especially more modern death metal sound, like the sound is so in your face, like it's not in like a bad thing, like nothing sounds bad, but it's just so upfront and it's just
Mhm.
so um like overly intense, but in like a production kind of way.
And so dense.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the cool thing is that with black metal, it gives it that bit more of a step back. Like everything's a bit more away, and like you said, like the breathing room, I find so much more important now because it's so easy now for bands to go into this kind of route where everything has to be loud and in your face and aggressive and horrible all the time. 1,000% all the time. But it's
Yeah, it's like they're afraid of air, um, because wherever there is space, they always fill it up. And I mean, it's probably impressive, but it doesn't sound really good in my ears. And I think a lot of that air that we're talking about, the breathing, um, actually means that you can hear the full range of the instrument and not just whatever's in front. I think they start covering up each other once everything gets too close.
yeah. Yeah, I agree and agree. And having this kind of 110% style production that's in your face generally makes a whole album harder to listen to
Oh yeah,
because it becomes like obnoxiously brutal in a way. Like it's the
yeah.
sound.
It's not like it's not good evil; it's bad evil.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, for sure. And I like having music that kind of lets you sink into it as well.
Oh
Gets you
yeah,
thinking about the pictures and the atmosphere and stuff. And when
yeah.
it,
A little perspective, bird's eye view, but not
yeah,
quite. I mean, just zoom out a little bit,
yeah,
and the whole thing sounds a lot better in my ears.
yes, I agree with that entirely. And
Mhm.
when it comes to Whoredom Rife's writing process, so how do you do it? Because it's really it's your thing.
Well, I play a lot of guitars for starters. That's where I come up with the ideas. Obviously, I play a lot of drums as well, but when I just play drums, I don't come up with music really. I don't make music on the drums. I make music on the guitar, and I always have a guitar around me. I always did. The goal is always to try and make something. Just noodling around, finding, notes that I like, chords that I like, and just build on it. And that's where it starts really. Once I have a riff or a part that I'm excited about, um, I try to build off of that. I'm not going to try to pair that riff with the riff I made 3 weeks ago, or at least I can try. But if it doesn't match like that, I kind of um, forget it. I always want to build from what I already have, and I think this is, if I may say so myself, that this is why the music kind of flows. Um, it's not like a lot of stopping and beginnings. Um, it's not a pile of riffs. Um, it's it's a logic, and it has a natural flow to it. And I think that's the main reason, because I always build of the foundation that I have. Um, and once I have you know um, enough parts, usually two, maybe even one, I go to the studio and I start recording the guitars right away. I find a soothing tempo, which feels natural, and then I just press record and I start recording the song. And sometimes I don't even have an idea. Let's say I have 1 minute and 30 seconds of music that I've prepared. I just go for it and see what happens. And sometimes I come up with some really cool stuff, and sometimes I have to sit there like beating things out. But I try not to force everything too much. It's like, okay, we didn't get any further today. Let's try tomorrow. And it's a constant process. Once I'm done with one song, let's say I'm happy with the riffs and how many times each part goes. Once I have the skeleton, I start recording the bass and the drums, even some easy atmospheric synthesizers just to lift the guitars a little bit. And once I'm done, I kind of forget about it, and then I move on to the next song. It's always something happening. There's like a constant process where let's say it's just a factory producing, and then I'm operating the different stations. Um, at least that's how I would see it.
Gotcha. So everything starts from the guitars and you build it up from there.
Yeah.
Cool, cool.
Well,
And
not exclusively, but for the most part, yes. I could be noodling around on the synthesizers and go, "Hey, that's pretty cool," and then I try to make a guitar riff out of that. But again, the guitar is the main instrument here.
yeah, and I think one thing that you mentioned was flow. And I think that's so important because a song with a good flow allows you to get sucked into the music more. And then everything feels so much more in place. Instead of it being like sometimes like having too many riffs and trying to fit too many ideas into one song makes it not only more difficult to create, but harder to kind of appreciate because it's just like pinballing from
Oh
doing.
yeah, even though I gotta say there have been some really successful attempts at doing that as well. I mean, I could mention the Storm of the Lights Bane album
Oh
by
yeah,
Dissection, which is like a lot of riffs and a lot of parts reoccurring, and then they move into new stuff. I mean, those songs are really hard to learn by just the sheer amount of parts,
hmm.
but they also managed to make it very fluid,
Yeah, yeah, because
Yeah.
yeah, it's ultimately all about flow. Because it's interesting that you mentioned that because that's the way I've always approached writing music as well. It's like every riff has to fit perfectly to the next part. Every section has to fit perfectly. Nothing can't sound too out of place. Everything has to like flow naturally. We should also talk about what kind of drum equipment and drum gear you like. Like, what's your
Yeah,
preference for
sure.
like, what's like your preference for like for drum kits, sticks, cymbals, all that kind of stuff, pedals?
Well, to be honest, brand doesn't really. It's hard to pick like favorites within brands because they're all amazing. Um, you get what you pay for. That's the bottom line. But there are some preferences, of course. I was fortunate enough to get endorsement deal with Pearl Drums Europe back in 2010, I think 2009, 2010, which was really cool. I'm still um, endorsing Pearl, and I chose them because of first of all the quality of the drums, but also their hardware and rack system is beyond compare. I think it's the most sturdy, stable, and the best equipment for both gigging and studio because it's so reliable. Um, so that's the reason why I chose Pearl. Also, I've tried many different cymbal brands. They're all unique in their own respect, and it all cooks down to taste really and what kind of music you're playing. Um, I guess the only advice I can give here is like you just have to go and try, because there are so many varieties and tastes out there. Um, so currently I'm playing Minol cymbals. I play the Minol Classic Custom Dark because they're quite affordable and they actually fit the music style I'm playing pretty well. So it's a win-win. Also, double ply heads is a must for me. They cut through in a different way. You can tune them a little bit lower. Axis pedals, used them for fucking 20 years now. Really sturdy, durable pedals. And you can set them up to practically any style you want. Sticks, whatever. I use mostly 5B. I've been using 2B, but I found that the 2Bs are a little bit heavy for my cymbals, so I started cracking the cymbals instead of my sticks, which made me choose to go back to the 5Bs again. And now I'm breaking the sticks and not the cymbals.
Yeah.
Drums are pretty expensive, I'm telling
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. As soon as you said breaking cymbals and all these minors, it's like, oh shit, like some of those like 300 pound cymbals or even
Oh
more,
yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And it's just it's insane.
Yeah, and it's so, it's so counterintuitive to go out and buy something expensive and then you bring it home and you beat it with a stick. It's weird.
Yeah, and with your drum skins, do you have any preference for like Remo or Evans or anything?
I'm using Remo pinstripes.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Cool. And actually, what one technical question that I thought of, because I was just remembering your drumming, um, when you're doing the blast beats, your right hand is hitting closer to the bell than it
yeah.
is to, like the ride out. How come you've decided to incorporate that? Having
Because I could hear the ride. So
yeah.
instead of playing with the tip of the stick on the ride cymbal, I
Mm.
would use the shoulder of the stick on the bell. And I think that kind of created my sound. But for me, it was all about being able to hear the ride cymbal loud and clear in a rehearsal situation. And also, I'm playing with in-ear monitors, which means I can't hear the drums as well, because I have both click and music in there. So I think it's all down to being able to hear what I'm actually playing.
When you're playing guitar and when you're writing, do you also just like so say for example you've got this one riff, do you just like play that riff and then let your muscles and your subconscious just like trying to create like the next parts? Is that how you
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Like when I'm doing recording,
okay, yeah.
sometimes I'll try to go into the next part as you just described, but I won't force it. I'll try a few times to see what happens. But for the most part, I'll look up the notes of the riff that I have, and I will try to reuse them, but in a different order, maybe. Even maybe take one of the parts out of the riff and build off of that. Um, yeah. So there's not much like real experimenting, but there's trial and error.
Yes.
And I'm always kind of conscious about in what key and what type of melody. I don't want to step too far away from it. But I've done so many songs now in that vein, and I'm not saying that I'm running empty, but uh, I I feel there's about time to challenge myself a little bit, um, and maybe do something that I don't always do. Something that's a little bit new, but not without. I don't want to step away too much from what we are already doing, but. A little bit experimenting with the song structure always inspires. Um, so yeah, I try to push myself a little bit because it's very easy once you find something that works and you just keep repeating it. And it gets boring after 78 songs, There's some part of me that wants to challenge the songwriting a little bit.
Have you thought of any ideas on how you're going to approach that?
Yeah, a couple. One of them is maybe to record the drums first and then try to put guitars on top of them. The other one is I want to start recording without the click, which means I have to do the drums first. But I can always, demo it just with the guitars without click and see what happens. Because you're a lot more free once the click is out of your ears. One thing is like rhythm changes. That could still work even though if the click is still the same. But I mean like tempo changes. I didn't used to be a real fan of tempo changes, but when it works, it's really cool, I think. And it's difficult, especially when I still want to keep the same flow, but I also want to do like tempo changes and maybe I wouldn't say I want to break up the music more, but I would like to use a little bit different ingredients and hopefully get the same results.
It's really cool listening to more drum focused music in a way, as opposed to like guitar focused music. And I think that's a really interesting way of doing it. It's nothing I've ever tried myself, but it's could lead to some pretty crazy results because it forces you to get out of this comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like it's so easy to come up with like a riff on your own or whatever, but then when you've got a drum beat there already, you've got to think, okay, how can I like, change up my natural style of playing to work with that? And sometimes it works out really nicely. So there's so much cool things that people can do in music that to experiment with, and I really embrace and really enjoy that kind of thing because it's so
Yeah, I was going to say, like uh, I was going to use the examples with the Soulside Journey album and the Goat Lord album, which is like really, there's a lot of stopping and going all the time, but there's this flow to it, even though, and it still amazes me. And I think it's mostly because of the musicality of the drums on those albums. It's so musical and it's just driving the band and it's so natural. But when you start thinking about it, it's like stop and go all the time, but it still flows. And that was kind of what I was talking about when I want to experiment a little bit more.
yeah, because I absolutely love those releases.
Hmm.
That the pre black metal Dark Throne eras because they're just because I love that. I love that there's so much going on with the drums. Like I really enjoy those albums. But yeah, brings me on nicely to the to Under a Funeral Moon. You know, what is it about that album that captures your heart so much? And it's interesting just because because we were just talking about like the drums and the movements with Soulside Journey, and they're so stripped back in Under a Funeral Moon. What is it about the album that really speaks to you?
I guess the first thing would have to be the time when I heard it the first time, because I was like 15 years old. And the impression that it made was huge. Um, and it was different from anything I've ever heard ever, and it still is. It was something about the way it was different because the sound, the first time I heard, I thought it was terrible. It's like, how is that even possible to record in the studio and still it sounds that bad? It was worse than, we used to record on cassette tapes in the basement, and we used to put like like clothing and stuff on top of the cassette player in order for it to not go like, the guitar starts and it starts playing, and once the drums comes in, the guitars go down like that. So we just experimented with like covering and that still sounded better. At least that's what I thought at that time. But once I started listening more to it, it was really interesting. Um, and once I started like getting into it, I thought it was a fucking masterpiece, and I think it was pure. is just genius the way they did the sound, because it's so cold. And um, even how they mix the instruments, as like with the volumes between instruments, the hi-hat is really high, and like the kick and snare is just like in the background, and then suddenly there's like a huge tom, and vocals really high and shrieky. So I had to get over all that in order to start hearing the music properly. And then I discovered how many good riffs there actually are in that album. There's like complicated, like intricate songs, as well as those pure, simple, straight ahead. So the whole album, it's fucking epic. It's dynamic, and it's the coldest, darkest metal album ever made in my ears. Still listen to it.
Yeah.
Still inspired by it.
Yeah, because one of my favorite songs off that album is "Crossing the Triangle of Flames,"
Mhm.
and it's that ending riff, the da na 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 da na 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 da na na na, and then it breaks down, and you go, something about that China cymbal. Yeah, just one of the greatest China cymbal sounds I've ever heard. It's just so yeah. See, like, admittedly, that's not my favorite Dark Throne album. I think personally, I think they've made stronger albums from start to end. But there's some moments in there that are just gold, like the Crossing the Triangle, da, na, na, na. Unholy Black Metal's a cool one as well, and even the like the intro riff in Natasha in Eternal Sleep. Like no one sounds like that even now. Like those chords
Yeah,
are still like super weird. Like here, it's
yeah.
so, all the notes ringing out and blending into
Oh
each
yeah,
other.
it's
So you
beautiful.
and then what was your initiation into black metal and getting into more music and drums? Because was is drums your first instrument, or is it guitar?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So what made you want to start playing drums, and what was the album that got you into playing like black metal and more extreme music?
First of all, I don't really know what got me into playing drums. I think one day I just discovered that it really interested me, um, and the more I thought about it, the more extremely interested I got. And I think I was like 11, 12 years old, and all I could think about was drums. Most kids in school, they pay attention, but I couldn't. I was drawing drums inside my books, and I was just thinking about drums. I want to play drums. That's the only thing I want to do. So after like 2 years, I had saved some money, and then this really nice lady, she chipped in. Actually, at that time, she was the main coach of the national handball team for women in Norway. It's kind of a strange story, but Takk, Marit Brevik. Um, she chipped in, and I was able to go and buy the drum sets that I wanted. So I did. Um, and I think just by starting to play an instrument, and maybe especially drums, I mean, there's something about it. You can just go and bash them, and it makes sense. You couldn't do that with a harp. It wouldn't make sense. But it appealed to me in so many levels, not just only musical. It was fucking therapy. It was a release of energy. It was a coping mechanism. It was pure joy. Um, and it's interesting because it was getting into an instrument that got me into metal music. Um, well, of course, during the 80s, I was a little boy, and apart from like Michael Jackson and Aha, I had barely any like real connection to music in general. I've heard like Bon Jovi, Europe, Def Leppard. and I kind of liked it, but I wasn't, a music freak until I started playing myself. And that's when I discovered that it was a lot more satisfying playing harder music. And the better I got, the more interested in harder music I got. So this is a kind of a feedback loop, which eventually got me on the path to like bands like Entombed, Sepultura, Morbid Angel, Obituary. It didn't last very long until a copy of the second Burzum LP was sitting on my lap. And it was actually Kjell, the singer from Whoredom Rife. He's 2 years older than me. He said, "You got to listen to this." So I did, and I was like, fucking hell, what is this? I never heard anything like it. And I had a couple of other friends as well that was kind of into the music scene and kind of into this metal thing. So I started like checking out music that I've never heard before, which was recommended by them. So I got into Immortal, I got into Bathory, um, yeah, and then Dark Throne, and yeah, that's how it started. And it was a strange time because there was a lot of shit happening um, around this music at that time, and yeah, I guess it was more than just music. It was very special, kind of magical. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And then how did you develop your technique? The stuff you do on Armada and even like Reptilian and Colossus, like how did you build yourself up to that hyper level of the hyper speed, but also this insane level of control and endurance? Like what was there like one band that you found that was just like faster and be like, oh crap, I've got to like try and learn and keep up with this? Or was it just like a natural
No,
progress of the
I
technique?
think it was more like from Art's the guitar player in Keep of Collision's perspective. He always wanted to push the music faster. He, I think he had an idea that everything is better if it's faster. I think one big part of it was that we were huge Immortal fans from the old Immortal, like Pure Holocaust and Battles in the North. I mean, Battles in the North. Not many people may know this, but that was a huge inspiration for Keep of Kalesin. And I think that's where the idea of hey, let's push the boundaries here. And we were rehearsing like 2 3 days a week for many years, and we just kept pushing. And whatever he would play on guitar, he would play the fastest he could, and I had to keep up. So every rehearsal was like playing out of the comfort zone and trying to play everything a little bit better, a little bit faster all the time. And we did for many years. And once we started touring, we would do this like 30 days in a row and push it and push it and push it. And once your body gets used to it, I guess sky's the limit. And yeah, we reached a certain point where, at least for my point, it wasn't fun anymore. It didn't make sense to me. It wasn't music. It was felt more like sports. And yeah, but I'm grateful for having been in a situation where we were pushing each other, not only musically but physically as well. I mean, um, we took it seriously. It was like, if we want to be recognized, we better be better. So I think it was a healthy rehearsal situation.
I think that's one really important point as well, is having other people like push you and kind of just help you become that better musician, like unlock something
Yeah.
in yourself as well. Because I remember speaking to Tobias of Dark Space, and he mentioned something, and it still sticks with me. What he says is like someone's idea is here, and then someone's idea is here, but together, it like compromising and working together is kind of here and
Oh
building
yeah.
and that really, really, that's still something I think about very, very often. It's like, because it's it's fine kind of like writing and doing things and rehearsing by yourself and stuff, but sometimes it just takes that one extra person or another person who's like, hey, why don't we try this or why don't we do this, and then everything's just like it's a million times better, more
Yeah,
more than you can comprehend.
I mean, look at the old every old recordings, like I mean, like video recordings of bands being in the studio. There's always this producer he says always like, one more take. This is perfect. Let's do one more. And I think that this pushing the musician to the brink of total meltdown sometimes can really help to get the most out of the music. But again, it really depends on what kind of music you're playing. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm pushing myself these days in the studio. It's a much more relaxed way of being in the studio, and I can appreciate that more actually. As far as Whoredom Rife goes, we don't need to push. Like we're not going to set any records here. Uh, but yeah, we can push each other musically in Whoredom Rife as well. And I mean, especially when we're doing vocals, it's not like he's not struggling, because we're always trying to make the vocals as badass as possible. Whenever he has a bad day, we won't record anything. We'll wait for the good day and then we'll push. So usually we could do like a song and then we'll be happy about it, and then his voice gets warm, and then we can track it again and it's 10 times better. So we do push each other within this band as well, but it's not like we're not like pushing for speed or like technical stuff. It's
For
more to
sure.
get
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To
a
help
more
with
extreme atmosphere.
the way I approach guitar and playing live now, and even music, because I'm really thinking about the show next weekend and the rehearsals and stuff. It's like for me at least, it's like every time I pick up the guitar to play these Oreshkagul songs, it's all about trying to not only have these like technically like down, but also make sure that whenever we do the band or do get in the rehearsal, it's at that 110%.
Hmm.
Try and find that breaking point that I think people enjoy, not only seeing the show but kind of listening to it as well. You know, listening to people on just on that edge of their limits. It doesn't have to be technically good, but everyone like just pushing themselves and kind of giving a shit when they make the music and they're playing the music. I think that's really really cool to see as well, because you show
Yeah,
it's yeah to me it just shows that they're way more serious about the music. Um,
yeah, and it's like you said with the limits. The limit was really what we were training for, because if you hear the old Immortal albums, I think there's Abbott playing drums on them, and he's playing above his limit, well above his limit. But I think it's fucking fantastic. It really works for them. But the limit was the thing that we were really training, because, like you said, in a situation where you need to be here, your limit should be here, not here. You know what I mean? So whatever you're doing, if you play a little bit below limits, or if you train your limit to be a little bit above what you need, you're always going to play a little bit more relaxed, and that's going to sound a little bit more musical.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really important point, because it's like if you're overly struggling, then you're just gonna like do your arm in or your legs or whatever. Um, but training for that, I think, is so key. So
Yeah,
you can so what would have been so say for example what would have been 110%, a month or a week or whatever, where you are now at your 100% is previously your 110%. And I think
right.
that that can overall make so much of a difference. And that leads us on to a the conversation we had about playing, how technique is built up from playing. Because in in my experience, it was always like trying to keep up to the bands that I was listening to and trying to figure out a way that I could play faster.
Yeah,
And at the same time, using a technique in a way that a way of playing that suits me best, that doesn't cause any pains or anything. Um, but it's because I had to kind of learn things myself. There was no kind of training on it, but it's because I played, because I was playing at that kind of level. I forced my hand to and I guess my body in a way to be able to just get there. I guess maybe I'm
Yeah,
explaining this really badly, but it's like that. There's so much
I
that
understand.
yeah, that there's so much that comes from just playing. You know, like the like so much technique just comes from playing.
Yeah, and not just speed. I mean, just think about the head, for God's sake. I mean, if you play every day, you're going to get so much more out of it than if you play like twice a month for 12 hours straight. It's. I think we're back to flow again here.
Hmm.
Um, and as a musician, I mean, I'm not like pushing for speed anymore, but I do maintain playing my instrument because I'm always learning, I'm always getting a little better. Um, and it's this the small things that you do every day is going to make a huge difference in the end, um, opposed to uh, if you practice like once a month and you practice for 18 hours, you're not going to get much from it.
Yeah, and consistency is so important,
Yeah.
especially for new musicians. It doesn't matter what you're playing or whatever whatever you choose your craft in, as long as you're doing something every day. Like I remember when I was a kid and I just got my first electric guitar or whatever, and every single day, like I was watching like TV when I was watching like Top Gear or whatever it was, like South Park or Family Guy, whatever. Yeah, I was always just going. Just practicing all the chords over and over again. And then then I was like, okay, I've got my left hand now. What about my right hand? And then just checking
Mhm.
things over. But building that consistency and just playing every day is really how people get good. And
Yeah.
it's like it's people are like, oh, they say like I could never get to your ability or I couldn't never do this, and I'm like, part of me is like, okay, if you're thinking like that, then you're already kind of defeated.
I was going to say, yeah, you're probably right if you say it like that.
Yeah, and but then if you think of it in a different way, it's like okay, I can't play that yet. Then already, like I don't know, something in your head, and then that occurs in your physiology, and then it's kind of like okay, then it's kind of helping you on the
Yeah, at least you're open for the possibility.
yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
and building yourself up that way because yeah, the little things really matter when it comes to music. And going back to your guitar playing, what guitars do you have, and what kind of sound do you go for when playing guitar?
All right. Here I'm on shaky ground again because again with the terminology. Uh, Guitar is my second instrument. I really never got into. I was never a guitar player. I'm a drummer who plays guitar in that sense. So I may not speak like a guitar player here. My guitars are. I have a, LTD MH1000 Deluxe. It's red ish, but I handpicked it because it felt right. And it also had on the tension rods, you have this extra disc that you can loosen or tighten,
Locking
which
tool.
means when you change the string, you just pull it through and you tighten it, and you can cut it, and then you can start tuning it up. And it's like I'm saving a lot of time just changing strings on this guitar, and it's really its stability is formidable. So I bought another one. It's kind of the same thing, but it's the Eclipse version. So it's basically the same guitar, but the Eclipse version is short scale, which means it's a lot better for like bending notes, and the whole guitar feels a little bit more flexible, um, in contrast to the MH, which is real sturdy. MH is my main guitar.
Gotcha. And do these have active pickups in it, passive pickups?
Yeah, I think the original pickups for these are EMG, so that's those are active. And but on the Eclipse, I bought that one used, and he had picked off the original pickups and replaced them with bare knuckles.
Okay, cool. And
Yeah,
how do you feel they sound in comparison to the EMGs?
literally can't hear the difference. But I never try them through an amp because I always record directly in the DAW.
Oh wow, okay. Okay, no, because I thought you had like a stack or some amps and stuff.
No, no, no. It's a straight line in.
Do you know what? It's a lot of people now are going down that route. Because in that sense, I'm a bit of a dinosaur with all this stuff behind me. But I like that swarmingness that
Yeah.
the stacks bring, and it's just so addictive.
Well, that's why we reamp,
Yeah.
because all the reamping is done in Ålesund with Rune.
Hmm.
So he takes my clean signal and he runs it through an. I think he has a 5150, and I think he uses two cabinets, and he reamps everything. And the idea now for the next album is that I actually bought like a reamp box, experimenting a little bit with reamping myself, but I'm not 100%. So Rune will come to Trondheim and help me shortly, because we are in well, I'm not going to say too much, but we're in the process of an interesting release.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. Something to look forward to. And when it comes to amps and guitar sounds, do you have any preferences?
I wouldn't know.
No.
I this is I don't know anything about this really. I could go up to an amp and kind of find the sound that I like, kind of. But amps, it's not my field at all, man.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And what made you want to start playing more guitar?
um, I'm not sure. I played guitar as long as I have played drums, but I always felt like drums were my number one instrument, and guitar was kind of like a hobby. But then as I evolved on the guitar, it got more interesting. And I guess there's always been a part of me that wants to be a reasonably good guitar player as well. But I never felt the urge to be on front of the stage, or as a matter of fact, I can't even play guitar standing up. I never
Wow.
did. I didn't have to. So I've just been sitting playing guitar. So well, as far as a studio guitarist for metal band, I should do okay. But anything apart from that, I'm totally blank.
With Whoredom Rife, what made you want to start the project anyway? Was it just like the aftermath of leaving Keep of Callison and just wanting to start your own thing? And why did you come to the decision to kind of record and do all the instruments yourself?
I started making a lot of these riffs and the ideas already mid 90s. Um, some of them were presented for Keep of Kalesin. Some of them were presented and used for other projects, but there was always something in the making. But then my musical career happened, and all the focus was shifted to the main priority. And we were playing up to about like 200 shows a year, and it was ridiculous. And obviously, we didn't have time to do anything else. But then once we started stepping down a little bit, and when I decided that I wasn't going to do this anymore, well, I've been thinking about it for a while before I made the final decision. I think it was in 2014 that I officially, or maybe not officially either, but that's when I founded the band and decided that this is going to be a project. And I had already started recording stuff. I wanted to preserve my ideas rather than start a new band. But when I decided to start a new band or a new project, as it was at that time, I had all these ideas that was already recorded. So I just started working on it, and soon enough, the songs started piling up, and I saw pretty quickly that this might go somewhere. And I thought, what instrument am I going to play, and what kind of people am I going to ask to join? And the first thing that came to mind was Kjell, because of our long time friendship, and I knew that he could sing, so that was a natural choice. And he was kind of out of music at that time, but he decided to join when he heard what kind of music it was, and he's like, "Damn, that's what I wanted to do all my life." And I mean, damn it, because I already started recording all the ideas myself. It was so efficient that I just continue. And there's a saying like, if you want something done, you better do it yourself. And I think it was that kind of spirit. Like, I don't need anyone else. I'm gonna fucking do it myself, and I'm gonna do it the way I want to do it. Naturally, everything just happened, and because of the efficiency of working alone, uninterrupted, anyone's opinions or priorities or fucking lives. I was finally able to get shit done. I didn't have to stress anybody about it, at least not myself. So I just sat down for like a couple of years and just recorded and just learned everything. And it was great. So I just kept at it. And that's I just found a really good way to work, and that's still how I'm doing it. It's perfect. And I mean, like, we just got a well, last year we got a new live bass player. I see him as a full-time member, so as do I with the other members. And I've told them, like, if you guys want to record on an album, that's fine, but it's fine as long as it doesn't take any more time or effort from me, which I understand is kind of a impossible um, demand.
Hmm.
But I'm opening up a little bit on that, and because I do think that people will bring stuff to the table. Um, it's not like I have to do everything myself. It's just it's been easier and less of a hassle.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely because sometimes with a band, there's always this level of waiting,
Yeah,
waiting for someone else to do something, and if you're in the zone and fired up, and then you want the thing done today, and then they take a week,
yeah,
and it's a month, and it's like, fuck, like, it's yeah, because there's there's always that situation sometimes where it's like you have a song written, and you expect people to learn it for the next rehearsal, and then it ends up being like two or three rehearsals afterwards. It's like, come on, let's just get this rehearsed and play it live. Like I totally get it, and it's easier to have that creative control, and when it came
less frustration.
and yeah, way less frustration. And when it came to choosing the live musicians, because I know you got Christopher on guitar,
Yeah,
and you've also got the I can't remember his name, but he plays guitar in Devil and is it Mari?
yeah, Eston.
Yes. So what made you decide on those guys?
Mainly because when we recorded the first demo, so to speak, we were already in contact with Ole, with Teratur Possessions, and he had all these other bands, and these guys were from our area, a little bit younger than us, but still from the same area, on the same record label. I think it was Ole that recommended a couple of guys. And we had a meeting, talked a little bit about our expectations and visions. And they all joined like on the spot. So we just started rehearsing, and a few months later, we were playing our first show in Czechia.
What do you recommend for people who want to start bands and how to approach their band and trying to realize their vision?
I think prioritizing is the most important thing. You have to really fucking want it, and you have to prioritize it. And by that, I mean really high. Prioritize it really high, not like after work, after dinner, after the birthday celebration, and then there's all these other things that happens in life that people tend to prioritize, and then they want to focus on the band, but there's no time for that. If you really want to focus on the band, I think prioritizing is number one. You have to prioritize really high. That means you have to sacrifice a lot of the stuff that you maybe take for granted. And that means not attending at your auntie's birthday. And it means maybe you don't work extra or you don't go on family holidays. I mean, it's a lot of sacrifice if you really want to get into this. You really have to want it.
Yeah, that's a really, really important point. Because I was just thinking about all the family events and stuff that I missed, just to do like band stuff and stuff.
Yeah,
It's really got to be a properly high priority. Like when
yeah,
I was like gigging a lot more and active, like that was like number one priority. It's like nothing else mattered. Like you got to get to rehearsal and just play and make the music. Like that was my priority for a long time. And
yeah,
and even now, well, my priorities shift because now now YouTube is a big priority, and there's been events that I've had to leave early, things that a lot of things I've had to say no to, and but it's because it's that thing, isn't it? Because if you do, because you've got like your purpose and you've got your goals, and then you've got the things outside of like your purpose and your goals, and if you spend too much time off the path, then for me it's kind of like, oh shit, like what happens if I stray away? And I'm more worried about getting off the path than staying on it. And if I do dwell off the path, I'm always thinking like, okay, what's the route to kind of get back on it again?
yeah.
And
You have
have
to be willing to sacrifice.
yeah, and have that level of commitment for sure, because it's
Yeah,
and band life isn't easy, because sometimes it's with like close friends and stuff, and then you can get into really difficult experiences and difficult conversations as well. So I
yeah,
think there's got to be a real serious level of understanding and professionalism.
yeah. And also being prepared helps.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because there's nothing worse than last minute bullshit when it comes to a band.
yeah.
It's like, if four people know the song, one person doesn't, that's
We're all fucked.
yeah, everyone's
Yeah,
fine. It's difficult. You can't control everything, but it's always so important to be prepared for anything and everything.
yeah.
And always having like a level of backup plan or something, even in the midst of things that you can't change. Have you got any like closing thoughts or any advice for people or any shows or anything that you'd like to announce on your side?
Well, there's a festival happening in Trondheim in January. It's a Teratur Possessions festival. And on Friday, I will be headlining with Vemod. And on Saturday, I will be headlining with Whoredom Rife. So I could really recommend. It's a really cool event, a lot of cool bands. And also, I recommend combining it with weekend in Trondheim and a little bit of sightseeing. Historically, it's a rich city. We used the pseudonyms. Actually, I did it for the first time with Hordom Rife because I wanted to kind of distance myself to anything I've done previously, and I didn't want anyone to know who was behind it. So that's actually the reason why I chose a pseudonym for the first time. I used to go by Veal, as many people know me, but that's not really a pseudonym. It's more like it's my initials.
Hmm.
And I started signing stuff with just my initials, and I left the dots out because I was sick of punctuation, like WASP. People just started calling me Veal, even my bandmates, even some friends here in Trondheim started calling me. So it's more like a nickname, really, than a pseudonym. So yeah, either Vegard or, in a professional situation, I'll go by the pseudonym.